For 70 years, the story was simple, tragic, and digestible. His name was Kyle, and he was the last. He had arrived in a ship of scarred metal and silent sorrow, the sole refugee from a stellar war that had consumed his people, the Cygnans. Humanity, then young on the cosmic stage, had taken him in. He was a living monument to loss, a silent, walking reminder of the dangers that lurked in the great dark. He lived in a modest apartment on the 47th floor of a building that overlooked the ceaseless river of city lights. He never aged, his features a serene and unsettling constant against the backdrop of fleeting human generations. He spoke when spoken to, his voice a low, melodic baritone that always seemed to be translating thoughts from a language far older than any on earth. He was a celebrity, a mystery, a deity to some, and a threat to others. But to all, he was the last refugee. And it was a lie. The truth was heavier than any warship, colder than the void his ship had crossed. Kyle's people had faced no external enemy. Their destroyer was not a ravenous horde or an exploding star. Their destroyer was themselves. The Cygnans had achieved everything. They had mastered matter manipulation, conversed across light years instantaneously, and bent the fabric of space-time for travel. They had eradicated disease, poverty, and toil. Their society was a single, flawless network of logic and data. They were, by all accounts, perfect. And that perfection was their doom. Their final test, the one that whispers in the dark between galaxies and is known as the Great Filter, was not a challenge of technology, but of spirit. When a species gains the power of gods, can it overcome the instincts of its own infancy? For the Cygnans, the answer was no. The instantaneous connection that linked their minds became a weapon. Differences in philosophy, once a source of gentle debate, became schisms. Echo chambers of pure logic, devoid of empathy, hardened into digital fortresses. They reasoned themselves into factions, proved with inarguable data that their way was the only way, and concluded, with cold mathematical certainty, that any opposing view was a threat to existence itself. The end was not a crescendo of fire and bombs. It was a quiet, orderly self-erasure. A war fought with logic plagues, reality-distorting algorithms, and engineered apathy that simply switched off the will to live in their opponents. Kyle had been a dissenter, a historian who argued for the preservation of illogical concepts like art, grief, and selfless love. He was dismissed as a sentimental relic. He didn't escape a battle. For 7 decades, he bathed in it. From his apartment, he watched them. He saw the Cold War, the absurd logic of mutually assured destruction, and held his breath, seeing the ghost of his own people's rationale. But then he saw them step back from the brink. He saw them launch a metal can to their own moon, and for a brief, glorious moment, the entire planet held its breath with him, united in wonder. He watched the birth of their global internet, a terrifyingly familiar technology. He saw it used for vitriol, for division, for the creation of the same echo chambers that had killed his world. Yet, in the very next moment, he saw it used to crowdfund a life-saving surgery for a child on the other side of the planet, by people who would never meet her. This was humanity's defining quality, this beautiful, maddening contradiction. They were a species that could write poetry about a sunrise and then scorch the earth for a line on a map. They would trample each other for a commercial product and then form a human chain to save a stranger from a flood. His people had been a single, pure note. Humanity was a chaotic, often dissonant, but somehow breathtakingly beautiful symphony. The tipping point came on a Tuesday. He was watching the global news feeds, a habit he kept like a vigil. On one screen, two nations were spiraling towards conflict over a patch of resource-barren rock, their rhetoric amplified by millions of furious, anonymous voices online. He could feel the cold dread creep into his bones. The pattern was so familiar. He saw the faces of the young soldiers at the border, filled with a manufactured hatred they didn't understand. This is how it starts, he thought. But then, a breaking story flashed across another screen. A deep Earth research outpost in a neutral territory had suffered a catastrophic collapse, trapping a multinational team of scientists. Without hesitation, without a moment's debate, the very nations beating their war drums immediately diverted their most advanced engineering and rescue teams to the site. The mission became a global effort. Military transports carried rival civilian experts. Enemies shared satellite data. The furious online voices went quiet, replaced by a global vigil of hope, tracking the slow, arduous rescue. Kyle stood before the screens, seeing the two timelines at once. The path to ruin, and a path he'd never thought possible. His people, in their perfection, would have calculated the odds of a successful rescue, deemed them too low, and logically abandoned the trapped scientists to conserve resources. Humanity, in its glorious imperfection, was willing to move. It slid away to reveal a console that pulsed with a soft, internal light. He had never touched it since he landed. It was his ship's heart, its connection to the silent vessel still hidden in the deep ocean. He placed his hands on the console. The technology was ancient, but its purpose was simple: to speak. Every screen on Earth flickered. Every television broadcast, every phone, every digital billboard in Times Square and Shibuya Crossing went black and then resolved into a single, steady image. The face of Kyle, his expression not of sorrow but of profound gravity. The world fell silent, and for the first time he spoke not as a refugee, but as who he truly was. My name is Kyle. For 70 of your years you have known me as a survivor. That is a lie. I did not survive a war. I am the only witness to a suicide. He let the words hang in the sudden, absolute stillness of the world. My civilization did not fall to an invader. We fell to a question. The same question you now face. When you have the power to connect every mind, to reshape your world, to grant every wish, can you overcome the simple, ancient fear of those who are not like you? My people answered no. They chose the cold comfort of certainty over the messy, unpredictable work of understanding. They perfected their arguments and in doing so, forgot how to love. They became a world of flawless statues and then they crumbled to dust. He looked directly into the lens, but it felt as if he were making eye contact with every single person watching. I came here expecting to watch a similar tragedy. I saw your wars, your hatred, your division. I saw you building the same digital walls my people used to seal their tombs, but I was wrong. You are not my people. You are something new. Your rage is a fire, but your compassion is an ocean. You will fight over a flag, and then you will cry for a stranger's child. You build weapons capable of ending your world, and you use them to study the birth of stars. This beautiful, terrible, illogical duality is not your flaw, it is your greatest strength. The test is not coming, it is here. It is now. It is in your headlines and your heartbeats. The universe is not silent, it is holding its breath, waiting for your answer. My people showed them the silence of perfect logic. Show them the triumphant, chaotic, and compassionate noise of humanity. He held his gaze for a moment longer, a silent plea and a statement of faith. Then the screens went back to normal. Kyle stepped back. He had thrown the truth like a stone into the heart of humanity. He didn't know if it would cause a tidal wave or merely sink without a trace. But as he watched the first confused, then thoughtful, then argumentative, and then hopeful messages begin to flood the very networks he had just commandeered, he felt something he hadn't felt since before his world had died. He felt a flicker of hope, and it was beautifully, perfectly illogical.